My name is Maurita Tollestrup, and a little information about me is that my husband and I and our 4 kids, we live in Grand Prairie, Alberta. And originally from down south, so it's always great to come down to Calgary. But a little tidbit about myself is I have a degree in recreation management. So I actually went to university to learn how to throw a great party. Is that ridiculous? I paid money to do that, and I never knew that those classes would be the most important of my career. But when I was going to school, my girlfriend Angie and I had these friends, and they were avid mountain bikers. Avid, they were great, and they talked us into going on this mountain biking trip. Now, Angie and I we had never done something like this before, but we thought we could good. So we drove down to Moab, Utah to go mountain biking with these guys. And we got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, and the temperature in Fahrenheit was about 60 degrees, which is about 16 Celsius. And we started on our way, and they were right. It was a gorgeous ride. 10 minutes into this ride, our experienced, trained mountain biking friends were gone. And left Angie and I, 2 little newbies, on our own. And I was talking with Marlo, and Marlo's from Moab, and when I said, yeah, it was slick rock, she's like, oh no, not that one. So that's where we were. It was awful. We got about 3 hours in, and we realized we didn't have water, we didn't have enough food, we had heat stroke, and we were dehydrated. And our car and our air conditioning were 3 hours behind us. So we flipped our bikes around, we drove back, and about halfway, just over an hour and a half back, a couple saw us, and they must have felt sorry for us, because they said, hey, are you okay? And they gave us some water, and they gave us these little squeeze-packed food energy things that we took. And then they were so generous, they turned around and came a big chunk of the way back just to make sure we could get back okay. Amazing. So the reason I'm telling you this story, I go, that's great, is I want to tell you, I hate mountain biking. Hate it. No, I'm not even joking. And on the way home, my bike fell off the back of Angie's car on our bike carrier. We dragged it about 10 miles. No love lost. We were just laughing about it, Angie and I, this weekend, and just saying, oh, it was awful. But the second reason I share it is that to be a successful sponsor, don't be like my friends who recruited us to come on this great trip and then just leave them alone. Abandon them in the desert. That's not what you want. We don't want people saying, oh, you know what? I hate direct sales. Or Scentsy, oh, that was the worst experience ever. That's not what we want. We want people to be successful. And we don't want to be recruiters. We want to be sponsors. And there's a big difference between being a recruiter and a sponsor, but the key difference is that sponsors, successful sponsors, help others have a successful journey. That's the key. And we need to be like those generous strangers, people that I didn't know who saw that we were in need and were willing to help us, even though, you know what, it was inconvenient for them. They gave us of their time, they gave us definitely of their means, and they actually committed themselves to come back and make sure that we were okay. And as sponsors, those are 3 things that we need to do. We need to be willing to share our time, our means, and be committed to help them. When I first joined Scentsy, when it first came to Canada, I didn't get the sponsoring thing, I admit it. I didn't. And I was lucky enough to go to that first world tour in Calgary. How many were with me that first world tour? And Orville, we had a chance to meet Orville and Heidi, and Orville spoke to us. And he talked about Scentsy, and essentially what he said was that sponsoring is a business investment. You bought your kit, that was your investment, but sponsoring is a business investment. And the more you help others, the more you're rewarded. And the late Zig Ziglar said the same thing, and I love this quote. He said, you will get all you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. That's what sponsoring is all about. Now, when I first joined, just as each of you, we got our kit, and we had 24 hours in our day. And we're limited to those 24 hours in our day, and our business is based on what we do in that time. And the more hours we put in, the more money we make. Simple. But within my own 24 hours, you can think of your own, I'm a wife, I have 4 kids, volunteer, community, church. Some of you work part-time, some of you work full-time. Some of you might have to be a caregiver for a sick family member. There's all sorts of different things on our path, but that still takes up a part of that 24 hours. So I was going along doing my own thing, my 24 hours, and then I realized after hearing Orville speak that, you know what? If I got a recruit, now I have my own 24 hours, and I also got some of theirs. Remember, the more hours, the more money you make. Now I know I don't get all of their time, but let's just say I get a small percentage. And let's just say for this example, I get 5 cents of their hour. So all my time, whatever I earn in my 24 hours, I earn that. Plus I get 5 cents of their 24 hours. I make $1.20 a day. Now I can see a few of your faces, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, you know what, Maurita, I can sell a bar and make more money than that. Right? You're thinking, oh, $1.20. And initially you're right. You know what? Team building takes time and effort. And initially, yeah, you can sell 2 bars and make twice as much money. But there's something that happens. When you give up the small rewards now for big time rewards later, let's talk about that math. That one recruit and I, let's just say she recruits, I recruit, we recruit this team, and pretty soon our team's at 100 recruits. I still, just as before, had my own 24 hours, and the more I work, the more money I make. But now, with my team, I have 100 recruits with 24 hours. So that's 2,400 hours. And if I only get 5 cents of that, that's $120 a day, or $43,800 a year. I could never make that just on my own with all the other responsibilities I have. And now imagine that those 100 people on my team, we recruit, and they recruit and recruit, and pretty soon our team's up to 1,000. You know, that's 1,000 people's 24 hours, and at 5 cents, that means on a daily basis you're going to make $1,200 or $438,000 a year. Now you can go on vacation, can't you? Now you can have maybe a not-so-good sales month because you have some backup and people to help you on your team. But I want to tell you one thing about this, and this is very, very important about direct sales, is that I'm not paying that money, and they're not paying me that money. Scentsy is taking that 5 cents, and they're paying it on each of our behalves. That's what's so amazing about direct sales and about being a sponsoring in Scentsy. So once I understood why I wanted to sponsor, now it's about becoming that generous sponsor that Orville talked about. And for some people, generosity is easy. I have a sister, easy peasy. She's the kindest, most generous person. She could do anything. For others of us, it is more of a learned skill. It is intentional effort every day as we develop that abundance mentality. And it is a lot of work. If any of you like me, it is a lot of work. The other thing about being generous is that you need to be able to, your team needs to be able to replicate this. Whatever you're doing, you want to teach your team to do it so that they can do it for their downline and they can do it for their downline and start a culture within your team and within the company of generosity. And we can do that by 5 easy ways. The first one we talked a little bit is time. Now I have a limit of what I can put into my Scentsy business. I'm not going to give up all my time because I have other responsibilities. But within my realm of responsibility within Scentsy, I'm going to share my time. I'm going to help with that new recruit, with their launch party and helping with their orders. I'm going to help answering some of their questions and walking them through the workstation. And whatever it is for you that your recruit needs, in that amount of time that you have, we need to be generous with that. We also have to share our means. I remember going to one of my first parties. I drove 3 hours out there. I was so excited. It was a great party. And I had just started the business, and I desperately needed that money. Desperately. But it was such a good party, and I thought, you know what? I just had, I heard this talk from Orville. I'm going to pass it on. And I asked her, and my hostess said yes. I gave up the means that I really needed to. I gave up the customers that I would have followed up with. I gave up future bookings because I realized that that means is going to help them, and it's going to show her that generosity that people need so that she can do that with her downline and share it that way. Generous with our ideas and with our knowledge. I have to thank a lot of you for helping me with my business. Facebook is incredible. The forum is incredible. How many people are the first one with a good idea? Not me. But guess what I've done? I've probably taken one of your ideas, tweaked it, made it my own, and then I shared it with my downline, and then just tweaked it and made it their own. And pretty soon we have what Stephen Covey calls a synergy, where two heads are better than one. And whether it's an idea of how to do sales or a problem, we have worked together to make this one simple idea something that is so amazing. And that's part of being generous. Not only with your team, I've had upline and downline I have been able to have ideas from, but also sideline. And for that, I really am appreciative for people and their generosity to help me grow my business. The fourth thing is forgiveness. This may sound silly, but I think forgiveness is a huge part in our business. Because we're human and we're going to make mistakes, and I know I've made my share of them. And I look at that and think, you know what? I need to do more and be more generous with my forgiveness. How many of you have gotten an email? Don't raise your hands. Don't raise your hands. How many of you have gotten an email or contact from compliance for something that was out of compliance? I have, and it stung. It stung, and I could have just sat there and thought, I'm done. This is ridiculous. But I made a choice. I forgave the situation. I forgave myself. Move forward. How many of you are upset with an upline or a downline or one of those random comments that you see on Facebook or the forum? We just have to get over it and move forward. Or maybe you're looking around and you're seeing someone else, and guess what? They're doing really fantastic, and you're so frustrated that this business is so difficult for you. And you just wish you could be more like them, and you start maybe to even hold a grudge, and you can't seem to move forward because all you're doing is just thinking about them all the time. Or maybe you started your business and you did really good for a while, and now you've kind of taken a little bit of a break, and you kind of feel awkward getting back in with your customers, or you kind of feel awkward getting back in with your team. Have to forgive ourselves. Move forward, not let anything hold us back from being successful sponsors. We need to be slow to criticize and quick to applaud. We need to see more of those rainbows and unicorns in our lives. We need to be the first one to cheer on our team, and that's number 5. Your team needs you, your recruits need you to cheer them on when they're doing well, and they need you to be high-kicking and cheering them on when they're having an even harder time. One of my favorite quotes is, people don't leave a company because of the job, they leave because of how the company makes them feel. But I want to add on to that, they stay because of how the company makes them feel. And every one of you in this room has that feeling, don't you? You feel it. And you are here because of how Scentsy makes you feel. And you might just be starting out, figuring this out. You might have been here for years. But the way you feel makes you stay. And you need to help other people have that feeling so that they want to stay and continue with you on this. When you're able to know why you want to commit, to recruit, to sponsor people, and also what it is to be a generous sponsor, when you can know those two things, that's when I believe you're ready to recruit. Because then you're ready to make that commitment that you're going to help people on. And everyone has a different way of recruiting. I'm going to share you my simple 3 steps. People always say, how do you recruit, how to recruit? I'm going to show you my simple 3 steps. And it has worked really well. But let me remind you, you have to be committed to everything else that I've talked about before you start to recruit. So my key is this. In your conversations, when you're talking about, when you're opening your mouth, ask a simple yes/no question. That question though has to feel good to you. It has to be your own question, whatever that is. It may just be, would you like to join Scentsy? A yes/no question. I'll share you mine. I ask this on a regular basis. I'll email whatever when someone asks me for an order or whatever. And I say it with a little bit of a drawl because I'm not really, I just say, well, why don't you just do this for yourself? And then is the awkward pause. And it is probably the most important part of the question. Because it's in that silence when they start thinking, you know what? I think I am going to do this myself. I really like that product. That Grace Adele, I want to be one of those new consultants. Or they're thinking, how in the world am I going to get out of this conversation? Right? Well, you have to have a great follow-up. The follow-up for me is this. If they say yes, I'm like, sure, let's make you some money. And if they say no, my answer is great. I'll keep taking your money. But don't be surprised if I ask you again. I guarantee every time I've asked this, I've had a response. I'm not saying they're all positive, but I've had a response, and then I can kind of figure out where to go from there. I did a lot of trade shows when I first started. I picked them up where I could, and I was lucky enough to have a friend, and her name is Elaine. And Elaine did a lot of trade shows, and she actually had a diaper company. And I'd be at a trade show with mine, and she'd have a trade show. We'd chit-chat about how things were going, and it was great. And with the next trade show, oh, friendly face, there'd be Elaine. I'd go talk to her about her diaper company. She asked me a little bit about Scentsy. It was great. A year later, Elaine joined Scentsy. But she didn't join with me because, see, I wasn't ready. I didn't invite her to join. And Elaine is probably my greatest lesson in sponsoring because she came to me, and I will not forget this. It changed my business entirely. She came to me and she got right up in my face and she said, Maurita, why did you not tell me about the business opportunity? I would be a year ahead of where I am now. Think about that. I held her up a whole year. It even kills me to talk about it now because I still feel guilty that I didn't help her. And when I called Elaine just a month and a bit when I was asked to present, I asked her for permission to share the story. And she actually said to me, she's like, Maurita, you better defend me. And she said, you know what? I'd go to your booth and you'd pass me a piece of wax and a catalog. She's like, I didn't know what that wax was. Something smelly. You'd give it to me every time. And she said you weren't willing to share that piece of the pie. It was like you held it all to yourself. You didn't want to share with anyone. And she said, I'm really glad you changed. I am too, because she changed me. Knowing that because of my inability to share, I may have changed someone's result, because I didn't tell you this part. Elaine's diaper business closed. She had to close her whole company down and was looking for something. If I would have talked to her sooner, think about that. Where would she have been? One of my favorite children's songs, it says, lead me, guide me, walk beside me. And it's kind of about a parent and a child. And I think about my own children. I said I have 4. I have a 3-year-old all the way up to a 9-year-old. And when they're little, I held their hands and I would lead them where they needed to go. Until they get a little bit older, and then you just kind of guide them. You give them suggestions. Let's try this. What about this? Until I'm hoping that one day they can grow into these great, independent adults where we can just walk beside each other and do whatever we're going to do. I feel very strongly about that is the same with my Scentsy family. That when I'm lucky enough to have someone who wants to join with me, that I'm going to hold their hand for a while. I'm going to make sure they kind of figure it out. And then, whether they feel ready or not, I'm going to just kind of guide them. I'm going to let them go and just give them suggestions and watch them become these independent people who can just walk beside me. Because I will be honest, if you don't have a team, it's lonely. You want a sponsor because it's so much fun to have family. That's it. You want to have a family. I want to leave you with a challenge. And this is my challenge to you. Don't pass the Elaines in your life. Think right now, write down a name and think of that person and talk to them. And when they agree to go on that journey with you, don't be like my friends and dump them off in the desert. Grab their hands, lead them and guide them until they can walk on their own and they can be independent, growing a great team, and they'll be so grateful that you helped them on their way. Then they will become the next chapter of your own successful Scentsy story. Thank you so much for letting me come. I really, really